In honor of this, God Almighty had built in the heavens a similar structure for the angels. And it is said that every day, 70,000 angels come to that building to perform their prayers and then leave, intending never to return again. Impurities of this world and the sinfulness of man, the stone slowly began to fade. When Amru arrived back home, he immediately took the idol and placed it right in front of the sacred house. He then proceeded to tell the people that this was now going to be the god that they worship. Sadly, this concept faced little, if no resistance. And as time passed, the people began to worship more and more different idols, until it is said by the end of the 6th century, there were over 360 different idols surrounding the sacred